za televiziyo yanyu zikomereje ahangaha muri Kigali Convention Center, aho tugiye kubagezaho umuhango wo gutangiza ku mugaragaro inama y'inteko rusange ya Komisiyo Nyafurika ishinzwe iby'indege za gisivile AFCAC cyangwa se African Civil Aviation Commission. Ni ku nshuro ya 33 y'inama y'inteko rusange igiye guterana. Kuri iyi nshuro rero ikaba ibereye mu Rwanda nyuma yaherukaga kubera muri Zambia mu murwa mukuru Rusaka muri 2018. Iyi nama y'inteko rusange ya AFCAC cyangwa se iyi komisiyo ishinzwe iby'indege za gisivile ku mugabane wa Afrika ikaba iteganywa mu by'ukuri mu mategeko n'ubundi agenga umuryango wa Afrika yunze ubumwe, kubera ko AFCAC ni urwego rw'umuryango wa Afrika yunze ubumwe, ni rumwe mu nzego zigize uyu umuryango. Rero ikaba amategeko agenga iyi komisiyo ateganya ko iyi nama y'inteko rusange iterana byibura rimwe mu myaka 3. Yaherukaga rero nkuko nari maze kwivuga yo muri 2018 ikaba yarabereye i Rusaka muri Zambia. U Rwanda rero muri uyu mwaka wa 2021 akaba ari rwo rwakiriye iyi nteko rusange irimo intumwa zihagarariye ibihugu 55 byose bihuriye mu muryango wa Afrika yunze ubumwe, bikaba bihagarariwe muri iyi nama y'inteko rusange. Inama isanzwe mu by'ukuri iba muri iyo myaka 3 ikabisubiramo ingamba n'icyerekezo iyi komisiyo iba yarihaye kugira ngo uru rwego rw'indege rubashe kuba isoko y'amajyambere ndetse n'ubukungu, kuko kugeza ubu imibare iheruka muri 2018 igaragaza ko uru rwego rw'indege rwihariye 2.2% by'imirimo itangwa hano ku mugabane wa Afrika, imirimo ibarirwa muri miliyoni 7.7 2018 ni cyo imibare yerekanaga. Kandi kugeza icyo gihe uru rwego rw'indege rukaba rwari rwihariye 2.7 by'ubukungu ku mugabane wa Afrika, 2.7% by'ubukungu bwose ku mugabane wa Afrika, kuko byabarwaga ko buri mwaka urwego rw'indege rugira uruhare rungana na miliyari 63 z'amadolari y'Amerika rushyira mu bukungu hano ku mugabane wa Afrika. Byumvikana ko n'urwego rufatiye runini mu by'ukuri abanyafrika, ari nayo mpamvu buri myaka 3 hagomba guterana inama y'inteko rusange y'iyi komisiyo kugira ngo irebe aho urwego rugeze, harebwe mu by'ukuri n'intego rwihaye cyangwa se rwanahawe n'inzego nkuru ziyobora umuryango wa Afrika yunze ubumwe, ngo harebwe mu cyerekezo 2063 uru rwego muri urwo rugendo rwo rugezehe, kubera ko hari intego ruba rwarihaye cyangwa se rwarahawe n'abakuru b'ibihugu. Inama y'inteko rusange y'abakuru b'ibihugu muzi ko ari rwo rwego rukuru ruyobora umuryango wa Afrika yunze ubumwe. Mu kanya gatoya rero nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika Paul Kagame akaza kuba ageze ahangaha, akaba ari we mushyitsi mukuru uza gufungura iyi mirimo y'inteko rusange ya AFCAC ku nshuro ya 33 ibera ahangaha i Kigali. Iyi nama y'inteko rusange y'iyi komisiyo ishinzwe iby'indege za gisivile ku mugabane wa Afrika ikaba igiye kumara iminsi 3 iteraniye ahangaha mu Rwanda. Iyi mirimo rero yo gutangiza iyi nama y'inteko rusange, tukaba televiziyo y'u Rwanda turi hano kugira ngo tuyibagezeho. Mu kanya gatoya Perezida wa Repubulika nagera hano mukaba murakomeza gukurikira uyu muhango. Perezida wa Repubulika Paul Kagame rero akaba ategerejwe ahangaha mu kanya gato katarambiranye kugira ngo atangize imirimo y'inteko. n'u Rwanda mu bihe n'ubundi urwego rukomeje gukora ibishoboka byose ngo rurebe uko narwo rwazahuka, kuko urwego rw'indege ni rumwe mu nzego zashegeshwe bikomeye cyane n'icyorezo cya COVID-19. ngira ngo abantu bagiye babona amashusho muri ibi bihe by'icyorezo cya COVID-19, igihe cyaguma mu rugo, igihe imipaka yo ku butaka ndetse n'iyo mu kirere byari bifunze, indege zidashobora kugenda kubera icyorezo cya COVID-19. ngira ngo n'ubu ngubu hari indege zimwe na zimwe cyangwa se amasosiyete y'indege yatangiye guhagarika ingendo zazo mu bihugu byagaragayemo iyi variant nshyashya cyangwa se ubu bwoko bwa coronavirus bwihinduranyije bwa Omicron. Bigaragara ko rero icyorezo cya COVID-19 kigihari, ntabwo urwego rw'indege rurimo gukora mu by'ukuri nk'uko rwari rusanzwe rukora. Byumvikana neza ko hari abantu batandukanye bari barahawe imirimo n'uru rwego batakaje imirimo yabo. Byumvikana ko hari ishoramari ryari ryarakozwe n'amasosiyete n'ibihugu muri uru rwego, nabyo byagiye byose bihungabanywa n'iki cyorezo cya COVID-19. Mu nama rero hano igiye kubera ahangaha mu minsi 3, kimwe mu bintu bikomeye bigiye kuganirwaho akaba ari uburyo n'ingamba zishobora kwifashishwa n'abakora muri uru rwego kugira ngo koko rwongere kuzahuka mu buryo bugaragara, nk'uko n'izindi inzego zose zakozweho bikomeye n'iki cyorezo cya COVID-19 nazo zigenda zifata ingamba mu buryo bwo kuzahura ubukungu bwazo. Bikaba byumvikana ko rero uru rwego rw'indege ku mugabane wa Afurika runafite uruhare rukomeye mu gutuma amasezerano y'isoko rusange Africa Continental Free Trade Area nayo agerwaho, agashyirwa mu bikorwa, agatanga umusaruro. Mu by'ukuri rero akaba ari kimwe mu biganirwa ahangaha. Nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika Paul Kagame rero akaba ageze ahangaha kuri Kigali Convention Center, akaba agiye gufungura ku mugaragaro cyangwa gutangiza ku mugaragaro imirimo y'iyi nama. Perezida Paul Kagame akaba amaze kugera ahangaha.
You may be seated. Thank you. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Rwanda, Honorable Minister of Road, Rail and Air Transport Togo, Honorable Ministers present, President of the Council of ICAO, President of AFCAC, all protocols observed, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Your Excellency, my name is Sonia Kamikazi. I'm the Director Quality Assurance of Rwanda. It's my honor to be the Master of Ceremony for this 33rd edition of the African Civil Aviation Commission Ordinary Plenary. Mr. President, thank you for honoring this invitation despite your busy schedule. The African Civil Aviation Commission, AFCAC, is an affiliate or agency of the African Union mandated to oversee all matters related to the air transport and civil aviation across Africa. This meeting brings together all civil aviation authorities and other global decision-making institutions in the aviation sector. The Commission is empowered by Article 10 of the AU Constitution to hold ordinary session once every 3 years. The last AFCAC plenary was held in Lusaka in 2018. Despite the challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, we wish to thank the government of Rwanda for hosting this 33rd plenary session of AFCAC. The meeting will be a hybrid of both physical and virtual from 1st to 3rd December.
Hybride du 1er au 3 décembre.
Without further ado, I would like to invite to the stage the first speaker for today, President of AFCAC, Mr. Gabriel Lessa, to deliver his
Gabriel
remarks.
Lessa pour son allocution. Là, c'est bon. Il n'y a pas une banane sur la route.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Rwanda, the Honorable Minister of Transport of the Republic of Togo, representing the Champion President of the Single African Air Transport, SATAM, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Togo, Honorable Minister of Infrastructure of the Republic of Rwanda, Honorable Ministers of State, Members of Parliament, here present, His Excellency the President of the Council of the International Civil Aviation Organization, Excellencies, AFCAC Bureau members, AFI Group Coordinator, and AFI Group members of ATICAO, Honorable Delegates, DGs and Chief Executive Officers and representatives of sister organizations and partner states, some of whom have traveled long distances to be with us here in this beautiful and welcoming garden city of Rwanda. Distinguished members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. I wish to warmly welcome you all, whether participating in person or participating virtually, to this important 33rd Ordinary AFCAC session convened in these extraordinary times of COVID-19. I also humbly request to join AFCAC in expressing our deepest appreciation to the government and people of Rwanda in general, our guest of honor, the President, for gracing this occasion out of his very important time. And indeed, in particular, I want to recognize and thank the Rwandan Civil Aviation Authority for the excellent hospitality and warmth, including the excellent organization of this session and facilities availed to all of us to participate in this ordinary plenary. We are mindful and grateful that our host only stepped in at very short notice to rescue the situation when the original host, for one reason or another, was unable to host us. Excellencies, the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic presented the most challenging period ever in the history of aviation, and AFCAC was no exception. The pandemic negatively affected aviation operations and exerted enormous pressure on the entire aviation industry. Despite these challenges, the Bureau of AFCAC and the Secretariat, with the active support of member states, were able to chalk significant achievements, working virtually, and some of the accomplishments included, but were not limited to, some of the following: the full operationalization of the executing agency and the implementation of the SATAM. The executing agency of the YD was fully operationalized after the conclusion and execution of the protocol agreement with the African Development Bank for the recruitment of additional staff of the project implementation team. The extension and operational assistance in the area of safety, security, and environmental protection program at SATAM to SATAM member states. 24 airline candidates, operators benefited from the International Air Transport Association, IATA, ESA certification program. And 14 other candidates, operators, equally participated in the IOSA certification program. The Secretary, working in collaboration with stakeholders, resulted in 35 member states that have now signed the solemn commitment to the implementation of SATM. There's been an increase in the number of AFCAC inspectors to assist member states. Your Excellency, during this difficult period of COVID-19, the Bureau and the Secretariat oversaw the appointment of the National Audit Agency of Tanzania to audit the accounts of AFCAC for the 2018, 2019, and 2020 years, which the plenary will be expected to consider later. Furthermore, AFCAC embarked on the restructuring of the Commission, the reviews of the service code, introduction of new staff rules, etc., to motivate staff and attract, retain competent and skilled manpower. The details of these and many other activities, such as the initiation, for the first time in the history of AFCAC, of the 10-year strategic and business plans, will be presented to the plenary for consideration and approval as appropriate. Your Excellency, distinguished delegates, whilst I welcome you once more to the third ordinary plenary session, it is indeed my expectation that the Bureau and the plenary will approve all the documents presented to ensure the continued smooth functioning and progression of the Commission. I wish to also use this opportunity to thank the outgoing Bureau for their dedication, great sacrifice in advancing the cause of aviation in Africa. May I also wish the incoming Bureau and my great friends great success in their new assignment. I also wish Your Excellency to appeal for support of our sister organizations and partner states for African candidates standing for election to the ICAO Council and the Air Navigation Commission. Lastly, allow me to extend gratitude to all our partners who provided resources that enabled AFCAC and undertake some of the programs and activities which we have chalked. Your Excellency, I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lessa, for your insight remarks and your visionary leadership as you drive the AFCAC Commission. As a reminder for everyone, we are reminded to keep our mask during the session. And for the translation channels, you can push 1 for English, and for French, you can push 2. Pour les canaux de traduction, vous pouvez utiliser la chaîne 1 pour l'anglais et la chaîne 2 pour le français. Merci. It's now my pleasure to invite the President of the Council of International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, Mr. Salvatore Cicchitano. Mr. Cicchitano, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Your Excellency, President of the Republic of Rwanda, Mr. Paul Kagame, Honorable Minister of Infrastructure of Rwanda, Mr. Clever Gatete, Honorable Ministers participating in this plenary session of AFCAC, the representative of the African Union Commission, President and the Secretary General of AFCAC, African Directors General of Civil Aviation, esteemed friends and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to address this 33rd plenary session of AFCAC in the beautiful city of Kigali, the country of the Thousand Hills, which is Rwanda. I wish to express my sincere thanks to AFCAC for this kind invitation and to join this important meeting. And I wish to appreciate here as well the significant commitment and initiative of the government of Rwanda for hosting what I understand to be the very first aviation meeting on the continent in some time, which includes in-person participation. ICAO is beginning to see some small signs of sectorial and societal recovery emerging all over the world. And we are encouraging member states to use extensively the ICAO Council's Aviation Recovery Task Force, CART, chaired by the representative in the Council of Equatorial Guinea, Ambassador Isono Anguissono, to follow the recommendations in support of international transport recovery, and consequently to reconnect countries more quickly and return to greater prosperity. I would like to emphasize that these CART recommendations are applicable to COVID-19 as such, including the new variant, Omicron, but I will say some words in this respect with your indulgence. In fact, CART, together with the African Union High-Level Task Force for Recovery of Aviation in Africa, have made tremendous efforts since the onset of COVID-19 to ensure effective, coherent, and coordinated response to recovery measures in international transport. The solidarity contributing to our joint progress in these efforts was also clearly on display at ICAO a few weeks ago, when we concluded an intensive 9 days of multilateralism aimed at global transport recovery at our high-level conference on COVID-19. The ministerial session of a high-level conference provided an important opportunity for consensus on some of the current key priorities. In their discussions, ministers at the high-level conference determined that while vaccination should not be a precondition for traveling, it should be leveraged at every prudent opportunity for safely facilitate the international mobility. They also emphasized the need to refine border risk management approaches on the basis of the latest scientific evidence, and highlighted the need to reinforce the global network against future threats. Ministers also stressed that aviation must become more flexible and adaptive in response to the reshaped economies, and the rapidly evolving societal and consumer expectations will confront it during the post-pandemic period, recognizing that the climate change emergency is paramount among the other concerns. And the technical streams of the high-level conference were an important complement to the ministerial decisions and discussions, and their outcomes stress the need for greater cooperation on strategic planning to improve aviation safety and facilitation performance. Technical conclusions also highlighted the relevance of ICAO's collaborative arrangement for the prevention and management of public health events in civil aviation, called CAPSCA. The CAPSCA mechanism is improving the cross-sectorial collaboration on future infectious disease resilience, as well as to augment public health and air transport coordination more broadly. CAPSCA is a voluntary cross-sectorial, multi-organizational collaboration program managed by ICAO with support from WHO, and is aiming at increasing the global preparedness to mitigate and manage the public affairs of public health events on civil aviation. A further important outcome concerns the need to aggressively leverage digital innovations and data sharing to achieve seamless and contactless processes, and to promote more efficiently global access to mutually recognized and ICAO VDS secure health certifications. I want to underline at this point that interoperability of certificate of vaccination is something that will have to be a must in the future. Full recovery will require mobility. Certification of a vaccine is an important document supporting mobility, but of course the interoperability of the certification is a must. The declaration, which formalized the outcomes of the high-level conference, provides an important foundation for renewed confidence and optimism as we work together to reconnect the world. I said confidence and optimism. And we must keep confidence and optimism in the framework of emerging variants as we are facing right now. We must be aware that we will continue to have variants in the future. And we will have to deal with new variants with some concerns. But what I want to underline, and what was endorsed by the Declaration of Ministers, is that the guidance provided by ICAO, the recommendations provided by ICAO, the manual provided by ICAO in collaboration with the WHO have been established to address COVID as such. And this guidance was developed before the implementation of vaccination. In this sense, the existing mechanisms are already available and effective to prevent the infection, to the disease to be distributed amongst member states. So I wish to recall that these are important reference documents to be followed before taking decisions. Now, we must take advantage of the foundation and build upon it to amplify it is the declaration and the commitments after the high-level conference and accelerate emerging positive trends for national and global benefit. For these outcomes, we must be realistic. To be realistic and attainable, the economic support to the air industry and the regulators cannot be neglected. Vital operations must be sustained and normal operations must be restored in order to allow air transport to fulfill its historical role in returning to the world prosperity. Bringing a complex global network back to full capacity is an enormous undertaking. Even more so in Africa, even in this size, given the size and the diversity of the wonderful continent. And in this regard, I wish to reassure you that ICAO and its member states have also clearly recognized the need for determined assistance and capacity building as a key element for all objectives relating to a safe recovery of air transport and building back better. And I wish also to remind that the ICAO Council principles of leaving no country left behind will continue to guide us in prioritizing and actioning this work. While recovery is now underway, we cannot neglect that there remain many and significant challenges to its fruition. This highlights the important role that will need to be played by Africa's regional organizations and economic communities. Building back better is a monumental team effort. And here in Africa, for example, it will require the continuous joint effort of states and aviation stakeholders to advance the objectives and work undertaken on the implementation of the Yamoussoukro Declaration, in addition to the African Union's flagship projects to realize the single market transport, the single African air transport market, and the African continental free trade area. In this regard, in addition to the ICAO-AFCAC Memorandum of Cooperation signed in 2010, the project implementation agreement supported by the African Development Fund signed early this year provides them with a suitable framework for cooperation to help accelerate the implementation of SATM. In concluding today, I would like to extend my heartfelt appreciation for the valuable contribution made by AFCAC and its member states during the high-level conference on COVID-19, and especially regarding the African Regional Oversight Organizations, so-called RSOs, and the key role they have been playing during the COVID-19 crisis. These collaborative mechanism for safety oversight deliver tremendous benefits and economics of scale. They are also enabled to expand the regulatory and oversight capacities of their participating states and ease personnel resource demands in today's challenging environment of continuously emerging technologies. This new era of innovation also brings to mind that the ICAO Global Navigation Plan permits and encourages states and regions to modernize by leapfrogging legacy technologies, and the adaptable performance roadmaps established under the ASBU framework, the Aviation System Block Upgrade, the so-called ASBU framework, will guide you in those efforts. So moving forward, ICAO remains committed to support the implementation of the declaration framework for a plan of aviation for development of aviation infrastructure in Africa, under the ICAO Comprehensive Regional Implementation Plan for Aviation Safety in Africa, so-called AFI Plan, in addition to other existing and anticipated regional initiatives. The ICAO Council has also recently made its voice clear on the fact that myself and the Secretary General must continue to be very actively engaged at the highest levels with African states, and that they continue to pursue progress on safety deficiencies and the effective implementation of the AFCAC plan. And this is what I'm doing, taking the opportunity of this plenary session of AFCAC in these days. In this, and in all other areas, we must also continue to strive to eliminate duplication of efforts and improve ICAO compliance, fundamental for the implementation of SAD, including with respect to our joint efforts to support accelerated recovery and the development of the transport and tourism per the objectives laid down in the SAL declaration 2 years ago. A great deal remains ahead of us before we can achieve full recovery, and the ICAO's upcoming 41st Assembly next September will provide an important opportunity to review our latest results and drive more ambitious outcomes. The discussions to be conducted at this AFCAC plenary session can help to inform and inspire the next stage in the process of global recovery, and I look forward to the enriching exchanges planned over the next 3 days. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Giacchitano, for your thoughtful comments and the great work ICAO is doing for the benefit of the aviation sector worldwide. J'aimerais maintenant inviter sur scène le ministre des Transports routiers, aériens et ferroviaires du Togo, honorable Afa Achadeji, pour adresser quelques mots au nom du président de la République du Togo, son Excellence Gnassingbé, champion pour le marché unique du transport aérien africain, MUTA, qui est appelé en anglais SATAM. Bienvenue, Monsieur le Ministre.
Excellences, Monsieur le Président de la République, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres en charge des transports et de l'aviation civile, honorables députés à l'Assemblée nationale, Mesdames et Messieurs, représentants des communautés économiques régionales, Monsieur le Président du Conseil d'organisation de l'aviation civile, OACI, Monsieur le Président de la Commission africaine de l'aviation civile, CAFAC, et membre du bureau de la CAFAC, Monsieur le secrétaire général de l'Association des transports aériens internationaux IATA, Monsieur le secrétaire général de l'Association des compagnies aériennes africaines, AFRA, Monsieur le secrétaire général du Conseil international des aéroports pour l'Afrique, ACI Afrique, Monsieur les directeurs généraux des autorités de l'aviation civile, Mesdames et Messieurs, représentants des institutions financières et partenaires du développement ici présents, Mesdames et Messieurs, représentants des organes de presse, distingués invités, Mesdames et Messieurs. l'honneur me choisit de prendre la parole au nom du chef de l'État du Togo, Son Excellence Fort Eswazina Gnassingbé, champion du marché unique des transports aériens africains, MITA, pour exprimer à mon tour ma gratitude à Son Excellence M. Paul Kagame, au gouvernement et au peuple du Rwanda, ainsi qu'au secrétaire général de la Commission africaine de l'aviation civile pour avoir pris l'heureuse initiative d'organiser la présente plénière ordinaire, la 33e de la Commission africaine de l'aviation civile. Il ne peut d'ailleurs en être autrement lorsque l'on se rappelle que c'est vous, Monsieur le Président de la République, qui avez lancé le projet MITA en janvier 2018 à Addis Abeba, et vous l'avez porté sur les fonds baptismaux en tant que président de l'Union africaine de l'époque, en compagnie de M. Moussa Faki Mohamed, président de la Commission de l'Union africaine, et de nombreuses hautes personnalités du continent. Je voudrais ici vous rendre hommage, Monsieur le Président, et vous féliciter pour le leadership avec lequel vous avez conduit la mise en place de ce grand projet. Mesdames et messieurs, le MITA, comme vous vous en souvenez sans doute, est l'un des projets phares de l'Union africaine qui promeut l'intégration socio-économique et politique de l'Afrique dans le but de stimuler le commerce et le tourisme intra-africain conformément à l'agenda 2063 de l'Union africaine. Comme vous le savez, les régimes restrictifs des accords bilatéraux sur les services aériens BASA entre les États africains et la lenteur de la mise en œuvre de la décision de Yamoussoukro ont étouffé l'essor de l'aviation en tant que moteur de croissance et du développement de notre continent. L'aviation africaine a un grand potentiel que nos pays devraient mieux exploiter pour en tirer davantage profit. À cet effet, il nous faut raisonnablement tirer des leçons de l'expérience d'autres régions qui ont libéralisé leurs services aériens afin de parvenir rapidement à des résultats de qualité à condition de surpasser les contingences des intérêts partisans pour écrire ensemble de nouvelles pages d'une nouvelle Afrique qui gagne. C'est ce que nous nous efforçons tous à réaliser à travers le lancement en 2018 du MITA. Créer un marché unique de transport aérien en Afrique, les libéraliser sans condition sur le continent et impulser l'intégration économique par la mise en œuvre de la décision complète de Yamoussoukro. Ce faisant, nous permettrons ainsi à l'aviation continentale d'occuper la place qui est la sienne et jouer pleinement son rôle en contribuant efficacement à la connectivité intra-africaine. Mesdames et messieurs, la promotion continue du MITA dans le cadre du plan d'action prioritaire conjoint pour son opérationnalisation et sa mise en œuvre, ancrée aux 6 piliers majeurs, a permis de porter significativement le nombre des États membres ayant signé l'engagement solennel de le mettre en œuvre de 11 en 2018 à 35 en 2021. Je voudrais saisir cette occasion pour féliciter tous les chefs, tous les États et les inviter solennellement à mettre en œuvre toutes les mesures adoptées, à s'organiser pour prendre des actions idoines pour promouvoir le développement de l'aviation et à inciter les autres pays qui ne l'ont pas encore fait à adhérer au marché unique. Ces actions viendront naturellement en esprit à celles prévues et menées dans le cadre de l'opérationnalisation de la mise en œuvre de MITA par les parties prenantes qui travaillent minutieusement sous la direction du champion du MITA pour amener les autres États à rejoindre le mouvement. Il s'agit entre autres de la CEA-ONU, des communautés économiques régionales, des agences de l'UE, de l'AFRA, de l'IATA Afrique, de l'ACI Afrique, de la SECNA, des bureaux régionaux de l'OACI, de l'ATNS, de Boeing, d'Airbus, ainsi que des institutions financières de développement, dont la Banque mondiale et la BAD, avec la CAFAC comme chef de file. Je suis heureux de constater que l'opérationnalisation de l'agence d'exécution a connu un grand bond avec l'appui institutionnel de la Banque africaine de développement qui s'élève à 7,3 millions de dollars. Dans le cadre de ce programme d'appui, des programmes d'assistance sont également fournis aux États membres du MITA en matière de sûreté, de sécurité et de protection de l'environnement, ainsi que des renforcements des capacités des communautés économiques régionales et d'autres parties prenantes impliquées dans la mise en œuvre du MITA. Je me réjouis du nouveau projet du montant de 5 millions d'euros lancé il y a quelques semaines par le secrétaire général de la CAFAC pour le compte de MITA avec l'appui de l'Union européenne sur une période de 4 ans. Il nous en souvient que nous avions espéré que tous les États auraient signé l'engagement solennel d'ici la fin de cette année 2021, mais c'est sans compter avec la pandémie de Covid-19 qui a mis à mal toutes nos prévisions. Toutefois, nous gardons espoir que sous peu, tous les États membres de l'IA rejoindront le MITA. Mesdames et Messieurs, les résultats de l'étude continentale sur les avantages du MITA, commandée par la Commission de l'Union africaine, nous ont fourni les outils nécessaires du plaidoyer et un nouvel élan pour une libéralisation rapide et complète de la journée de la décision de Yamoussoukro. Le 15 novembre de cette année, nous avons enregistré des gains évidents et substantiels pour les économies des États membres qui contribueront aux objets de développement à long terme de l'ensemble du continent. De plus, maintenant que nous amorçons le processus de relance en mettant le cap sur la résilience post-pandémique, nous avons tous la responsabilité de plaider pour que la libéralisation joue un rôle prépondérant dans l'accélération de la reprise du trafic et son essentiel au développement à long terme des marchés du transport en Afrique. Je voudrais encore une fois, au nom du président de la République du Togo, champion du MITA, saisir cette occasion pour appeler tous les États membres qui n'ont pas encore adhéré au MITA à le faire sans plus tarder et à soumettre leurs instruments d'engagement solennel. La mise en œuvre complète de la décision de Yamoussoukro et du MITA ne devrait pas être retardée plus longtemps car les avantages pour le continent sont consistants et réels. Mesdames et Messieurs, chers participants, je voudrais enfin saluer le dynamisme et les réalisations exceptionnelles du secrétaire général de CAFAC, M. Tefera, sous la direction de la Commission aux infrastructures de l'énergie de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Dr Amani Abdou Zaïd, pour avoir mené à bien le mandat consistant à plaider efficacement en faveur de la mise en œuvre du MITA, malgré les défis posés par la pandémie Covid-19 et pour avoir contribué à l'amélioration des niveaux de conformité des États africains et des compagnies aériennes en termes de normes et de pratiques recommandées en matière de sûreté et de protection de l'environnement. Nous devons nous féliciter davantage de ces réalisations, d'autant que ces activités ont été accomplies pendant la pandémie du Covid-19, où la CAFAC a facilité les travaux de la task force au niveau de l'Union africaine. C'est d'ailleurs à juste titre que je voudrais insister sur l'importance de l'organisation prochaine de la réunion ministérielle sur le MITA afin de consolider sa mise en œuvre, vu que la pandémie n'a pas permis de nous réunir en 2020. Aujourd'hui, le temps de la consolidation est venu. Nous devons nous réajuster et avancer à un rythme plus rapide et plus soutenu que par le passé. En gardant un œil sur l'histoire, ravivons notre vision afin que lorsque les pages de l'histoire seront tournées, qu'elles le soient pour se souvenir de nous pour le bien exceptionnel que nous avons fait pour le continent. Dans les mêmes ordres d'idées, je voudrais remercier, au nom du président de la République togolaise, leur Excellence, les ministres et les ambassadeurs ici présents, les chefs d'organisations internationales, les directeurs généraux d'organisations internationales et les compagnies aériennes pour leur collaboration et leur coordination avec la Commission de l'Union africaine, l'AFCAC, les parties prenantes et les partenaires de développement qui nous ont permis d'atteindre ce niveau. Je tiens à remercier tout particulièrement la BAD, l'Union européenne et la Banque mondiale pour leur appui multiforme qui ont contribué à la mise en place de l'agence d'exécution et pour avoir encouragé le développement durable du transport aérien en Afrique. C'est le lieu pour moi de lancer un appel à l'endroit des autres partenaires techniques et financiers pour un soutien accru au secteur des transports aériens, victime des répercussions dévastatrices de la crise sanitaire mondiale à coronavirus, afin de favoriser la réalisation rapide des objectifs du MITA pour un transport aérien connecté et diligent du ciel africain. Je voudrais pour finir renouveler au nom du chef de l'État du Togo mes félicitations au secrétaire général de la CAFAC pour ces réalisations accomplies pour le compte du MITA. Je crois que son leadership et son professionnalisme ne sont plus à démontrer. Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la République. Excellence, Monsieur, Madame, je souhaite, au nom du champion du mi-temps, plein succès à la 33e session plénière de la CAFA. Je vous remercie pour votre aimable attention.
Merci beaucoup, honorable, pour vos mots d'encouragement et merci encore pour votre soutien indéfectible. Please join me in welcoming Rwanda's Minister of Infrastructure, Honorable Claver Gatete, to deliver the welcome remarks, after which he will then invite the guest of honor to officially inaugurate this conference. Thank you. Welcome.
Excellency, the President of the Republic of Rwanda, honorable ministers here present, Council President of International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, President of AFCAC, Secretary General of the Association of African Airlines, heads of civil aviation regulatory bodies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm greatly honored to welcome you all to the 33rd plenary session of the African Civil Aviation Commission taking place here in Kigali for the first time. Your Excellency, we wish to take this opportunity to thank you for officiating this opening ceremony for this important meeting despite your very busy schedule. We have over 200 delegates attending this meeting, both in person and virtually. The delegates include the ministers in charge of civil aviation of the Republic of Togo and the Democratic Republic of Congo, dignitaries from International Civil Aviation Organization, delegates from Agency for Aerial Navigation Safety in Africa and Madagascar, Qatar Civil Aviation Authority, Arab Civil Aviation Commission, European Civil Aviation Conference, Latin American Civil Aviation Commission, European Union Aviation Safety Agency, USA Federal Aviation Administration, representatives from the United Arab Emirates General Civil Aviation Authority, and the African Civil Aviation Authorities. I thank all of you who managed to attend physically despite the challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. And I understand that even many more are joining us virtually. Warm welcome to all of you once again. This plenary meets on a triennial basis to review progress of its established goals and the plan for the next 3 years. It is expected that during this session, member states will elect African Union representatives to the ICAO Council. They will also elect a new bureau for the next 3 years and submit a triennial report on the state of the implementation of the Yamoussoukro decision and the single African air transport market to the Assembly of the Heads of State and Government through the Executive Council. Your Excellency, distinguished delegates, it is also important to point out that the discussion on the liberalization of the airspace is vital, considering that the African Continental Free Trade Area is planned to unlock business for the air transport sector to support the increased volume of trade and travel among African states. Africa also has a booming tourism industry that needs support of the aviation sector, and the emergence of the e-commerce has brought even higher demand on cargo operations. ICAO data indicate that the world total passengers had declined by 60% in 2020 and expected to reach 50% in 2021 compared to the pre-COVID period in 2019. Furthermore, in 2020, passenger revenue losses for African airlines were estimated at $10.2 billion, and the projections for 2021 are estimated to reach $8.2 billion. This situation requires significant support to the airline industry by our own governments. In the case of Rwanda, we managed to support the air transport recovery through the Economic Recovery Fund, introducing COVID screening robots at the airport to minimize person-to-person physical contacts, real-time web-based air travel directives, massive testing for the aviation operators, in addition to mass vaccination, among others. To achieve sustainable recovery and the desired growth, we should join our efforts to support Africa's integration programs and initiatives to fight against COVID-19 pandemic. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, once again, allow me to thank AFCAC for choosing Rwanda to host this event. Your Excellency, as we strive to recover from COVID-19 pandemic, we seek your counsel and guidance to continue improving capacity and infrastructure, thus building resilience to fight other COVID-19 variants and any future pandemics. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, please join me as we welcome to the stage our guest of honor, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Rwanda. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Gabriel Risa, President of the African Civil Aviation Commission, Salvatore Shakitano, President of the International Civil Aviation Organization, senior officials, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. First, allow me to warmly welcome you to Rwanda. We are happy to host you and thank you for choosing our country for this event. I also wish to commend the African Union for the continued support and the progress made towards achieving the single African air transport market. The COVID-19 pandemic, nevertheless, has negatively impacted the aviation sector globally, and Africa is no exception. In fact, the pandemic continues to affect us all. I mean, one simple example is the recent case of this variant, the Omicron variant, and the confusion it has really brought everywhere, including in the air transport. I'm saying this because you've seen starting with first, South Africa was generous in sharing information of what they had just discovered of this variant. And all of a sudden, of course, there is a reaction toward that. Airlines started suspending flights to the Southern African part of our continent. Passengers originating from there, going toward different parts of the world, being blocked, and a lot of questions. Now, in the midst of that, first it was that the origin of it was Southern Africa or South Africa. Then as that is happening and people are taking action and so on, information also comes out and says, oh, by the way, this virus has been around in some other parts of the world, even before South Africa. Let us know that they had discovered this virus. Now, this requires better organization, better communication, concerted effort in doing what we are doing, but unfortunately, the speed at which things are happening as related to the effects of the pandemic is staggering. Now, let me give you, like in the case of Rwanda, when we learned of this variant, like any other country, like anywhere else, we had to take immediate action, at least had to figure out what to do in response to that, because that was already happening because of what other actions other people were taking. And our airline had to suspend flights to the Southern African region of our continent, even though the information everybody was operating on was that this variant was in Southern Africa, but we find it is somewhere else. In fact, I agree. I saw the president of South Africa saying that South Africa, for example, was being punished for being transparent and putting information out there of what they had discovered. But others who had identified it had been quiet, and they had discovered that before. In our case, Rwanda had to take measures internally here in the country, but naturally also to do with beyond our borders. And the simple reason was, for example, the flights that come from Southern Africa, most of the passengers who come to Kigali don't terminate their journey in Kigali, in Rwanda. The majority are going through to other destinations. So there was going to be an economic backlash if we just went to Southern Africa. First of all, we would be not bringing passengers because passengers normally come through here to other destinations, so they wouldn't be coming. We might be able to carry passengers to Southern Africa, originating from here, but on the way back, the flights would almost be empty every time. So it wouldn't make economic sense. In fact, we would probably make huge loss around that. So one of the measures we took was to say, well, let's wait and see what happens across the world. Let's stop on flying to Southern Africa. But I'm raising this because of the need we are emphasizing for us to keep finding ways we can be better coordinated in action and minimize the sort of discomfort or inconveniences or even loss that is incurred in what we are doing. And so that each country, each airline, each does not do whatever they think is suitable only for themselves, but rather, if better coordinated, seeing how we affect each other and maybe improve our actions on that. So enough of that. Let me go back to why we are here. But I was just stressing the way the pandemic has really sort of created chaos and how we need to work hard and together to manage this. So the liberalization of air transport can help with the sustainable recovery from COVID-19 pandemic effects, while facilitating operation of the African continental free trade area. Allow me to make a few suggestions on steps to fast-track the development of a single air transport market on our continent. First, investment in infrastructure is very critical. Rwanda's aviation industry continues to see considerable growth, particularly with the increase in capacity of Rwandair and the construction, the upcoming of the new international airport. These investments support connectivity within Africa and complement Rwanda's decision to remove visa requirements for fellow Africans. Also, as we have made it easy for other travelers from outside of our continent. Second, affordability should be at the forefront of our strategy. The aviation sector should not be overtaxed and overburdened with charges compared to other sectors. After all, we want to encourage our citizens to travel within our continent. Lastly, innovation is the key for sustainability. Digital processes should be adopted to manage travel health credentials. In the long run, this will minimize airport disruptions and increase confidence in safety. As we work towards fully opening our skies, the adoption of the dispute settlement mechanism should be a priority. This will help create the impetus for more countries to liberalize their bilateral air services agreement. To sustain the gains already made, the continent's favorable demographics can be leveraged. This means, above all, investing in our people and creating the necessary skills to help them take advantage of the wider social and economic benefits that this market offers. To close, I would like to express my appreciation to the African Civil Aviation Commission for the work you have been doing. Your commitment, coupled with the collaboration of regional and international partners, will make the civil aviation industry more resilient and contribute to the continent's development. Thank you again for gathering here in our capital, Kigali. I hope you will continue to enjoy your stay and work here. So you are free to take time and enjoy what our capital, our country have to offer. You are most welcome. I thank you for your kind attention.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for your insightful and forward-looking remarks. We are thankful for your visionary leadership to continue driving the aviation sector to the highest standard. We have now come to the end of the opening ceremony. Once again, Mr. President, we are honored for the time you have spent with us today. To our distinguished guests, we wish you a pleasant stay in Rwanda and fruitful discussion during the 3 days. Ladies and gentlemen, let us now rise as the guest of honor departs. Colleagues from protocol will guard those going to be part of the group photo. We kindly ask everyone else to remain in the room. I thank you all and wish you a good day. Merci encore une fois à tous et passez une très belle journée.
nk'uko mubikurikiye rero nyakubahwa perezida wa repubulika Paul Kagame akaba amaze gutangiza ku mugaragaro imirimo y'inteko rusange ya komisiyo nyafurika ishinzwe iby'indege za gisivile cyangwa se AFCAC, African Civil Aviation Commission. Imirimo y'iyi nama ikaba itangiye kuri iyi tariki ya mbere z'uku kwezi k'Ukuboza, ikaba izasoza ku itariki ya gatatu. Iminsi itatu rero abasaga 200 cyangwa bakaba 200 bahagarariye ibihugu 55 byibumbiye mu muryango wa Afurika yunze ubumwe bakaba bagiye kuganira ku buryo uru rwego rwakomeza gutera imbere no gusohoka mu bibazo cyangwa se no mu ngaruka zatewe uru rwego rwatewe ni icyorezo cya COVID-19. Akaba rero ari inama muzakomeza gukurikira mu makuru yacu ya televiziyo Rwanda. Naho ubundi reka tubashimire, tubifurize ibihe byiza no kunogerwa n'izindi gahunda zose televiziyo Rwanda yabateguriye. Ibihe byiza aho muri mwese.